Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Melissa Longo, and each episode, my guests and I will bring you fresh, fun ways to rock your life as a health professional and create a business that aligns with who you are and the life you want to live. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. I'm excited for today's show because I think it's going to offer some really great practical advice. It's not the usual conversation that I have on this show. However, I think it's really important because if you are in the business of helping other people, then you want to make sure that you're helping yourself and preventing unwanted legal issues from finding their way towards you. So joining me today for a conversation about how to be legally lit is Vanessa Locicero. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Locicero.
Locicero, sorry about that. But welcome to the show. I'm really glad that we've connected in our hometown of Collingwood here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Melissa, for having me on the show. It's great to be here, and I'm excited to share with your audience a little bit about the legal landscape of being a service provider.
So, I mean, before we dive into that, I'd love for people to hear a little bit more about you because I've been fascinated by your story. And what I love about it is that it's been so, your handle on Instagram is Soul Attorney. And I feel like your journey has been a soul journey, right? You talked about way back in school and university, people thinking you should be in law. And you're like, no, not a hell. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Found your way through culinary arts, becoming a chef, a restaurateur, then back into small business, and finally called to the bar and now a practicing lawyer. So did I miss anything? Probably a few things.
That was like a great summary. You nailed it.
But how have you found your way here and what brought you back to legal profession?
Yeah, how I found my way here was by listening to my gut, really. I had a lot of external forces kind of telling me what they thought I should be doing and what my future should look like. And I really went up against that by just following my heart. And ultimately, the way I went from culinary back to law involved a real interest in learning about genetically modified food. And so I was a chef. I really cared about the ingredients, the quality, where they came from, their source, and what goes into gardening and farming, and learned about some of the genetic modification that was going on in large farm systems. And so the case law came across my desk, and it just interested me so much that I wanted to be a food lawyer. I didn't know that there wasn't such a thing as a food lawyer. And I pursued learning about all the different types of business law that I could apply to a food business or a restaurant business or a service business. So that's kind of how I went from food back to law and then ultimately to business law. Along the way, the first few years of my legal practice were on the litigation side of things. So I started off doing commercial litigation, dealing with all kinds of issues from contracts to securities to tax law. And then when I moved, I decided to leave the city. So I did that commercial litigation down in the concrete jungle of Toronto. And I thought I wanted to be Miranda from Sex and the City. Not so much, didn't really work out that way. And when I moved up north, I did a little bit of litigation work on the personal injury side of things for a few years. So I really got to see, like, I sued businesses where people got hurt. I was the one, doing the suing, and it was good. I felt, great getting results for those clients and making sure they got what they needed. But it was always on the reactive side of things, very reactionary. And the clients, the energy that they would come to the table with would be, much more backed into a corner kind of feeling rather than an empowered taking responsibility for it. When you go see a lawyer, normally it's because something went wrong, right? And unfortunately, that is the main trigger point that brings people into contact with the law. And so I kind of started to see that, and that litigation didn't even provide that sense of justice that people really were looking for. It was this transactional thing that costs a lot of money, a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of emotional strain for people, and it wasn't worth it. And so after a few years, with some time with COVID, working from home, starting to see that there were other lawyers out there practicing law outside of the mainstream path for lawyers, big law, working with the Crown, that kind of stuff. It was amazing. I was so inspired seeing these new lawyers doing it virtually, offering services and education to the public that normally wasn't accessible. And so I took a leap and switched practice areas to be no longer a barrister, but move over into the solicitor camp and start doing preventative work for clients and helping them get set up for success before liability comes knocking at your door.
Mm-hmm. What I love about this conversation is that so many of us in healthcare, I mean, I'm a chiropractor, I want to help people understand the basis of their health and prevent injuries, poor health from happening, right? I always want to get to the cause and inspire people, lead them to make healthier choices so that they're not in a reactive mode. And I love what you said about typically when we hire a lawyer, it's because we're reacting to a problem. But if we can flip it and understand how we can be more preventative in our behaviors and our actions, then that changes the whole game. It's very much similar to what we do as healthcare professionals. So, and thank you for sharing your story. I think that it's, what you said earlier is like, you were told what your future should look like. I think my Instagram post this morning was like, it's the fastest way to an unhappy life is trying to live someone else's version of success for you. So I love that you're so soul inspired, and I'm glad that our paths crossed in a business program, essentially. So let's chat quickly about, your experience. You've represented people, you've seen some shit go down. By the way, it's fine if you swear on the show.
Okay.
What are some of the basics? If we were to start from the top, like, are there some basic fundamentals that you see your clients have missed?
Yeah, right off the top, there would be the service providers who are entering into agreements to provide service to people without a signed contract. So I get it that a lot of word of mouth and, verbal agreement can be easier for sales or feel less burdensome in the sales process. But I will say that doing business without a signed service agreement with your clients is a huge risk, not only for your bottom line, for all those people who unfortunately like to ghost on payment, but also for your boundaries as a business owner. Like, I know you talk about making sure your business serves your life as well. And you don't want to set up a business where your clients feel like they can walk all over you. So having a service agreement that sets out clear expectations between you and your client, how the service is provided, how they'll communicate, what your rescheduling and cancellation policy is like, all of those kinds of things. Really set a clear boundary for your business. And one of the things I love to say about contracts from the soul and energy side of things is that they're a physical manifestation of your energetic boundaries. So if you have good boundaries with your business, then why not put them in writing for people to sign and say, yeah, I agree that this is how our relationship is going to go.
So for us, like as a clinical chiropractor, and let's just be clear, everyone, what Vanessa is offering today is information. She is not your lawyer. So please be sure to consult your regulatory body and follow the rules that have been established for you to protect your right to practice clinical care, whatever discipline that you are in, whatever province, state, country that you're in. So for me, in the province of Ontario, I follow the standards of practice set out by the College of Chiropractors of Ontario. So would like a consent was a contract that essentially I get with everyone that I work with in my practice. So would that be something that you've seen consistently, just is what the contract, so to speak, is? Because I don't know many docs who would have, and I'm trying to think of when I'm getting to my dentist or other situations, if I've ever signed a contract.
Yeah, the consent is generally the primary form of service agreement in the medical services field, because they're consenting to provide you with care and to, your privacy policy, all of the ways you're going to be protecting their personal information. But what I'm talking about is just is a little more expanded version of that. So maybe when you first signed up for or booked your consultation appointment, you were given something that came up on the screen that you scrolled through and scrolled to the bottom and clicked, okay, I read it. That's probably a version of a service agreement or a terms and conditions that sometimes we're faced with that we can review in order to kind of see what the relationship is going to look like. So it might be different for medical professionals. And yes, thank you, Melissa, for stating that this is definitely general legal education, not legal advice, and is not specific to any jurisdiction, but really general legal principles. That those individuals are clear on what the relationship is going to look like.
So, okay, so that was the first thing that you've seen is a gap for people, or one of the basics. What are some of the other ones that you've seen that are crucially important not to miss?
Yeah, I would definitely say that protecting and leveraging your intellectual property is a really another legal tool that is really important for medical health care providers. And it's important to differentiate you from other providers in the marketplace. So different legal tools that you can use to protect your brand and your business include a trademark. That would be registering a trademark for your brand name, for a signature offer or a program or your business name, or something like copywriting certain creative work that you've made, whether that is content or a course or something like that that you offer as a digital product, or even if you're have a special recipe or a patented method or formula for providing a specific service, considering patenting that information is also a really great legal tool. And once you have taken these legal steps to protect your intellectual property, then the government and the all third parties in the marketplace will recognize that you have this tangible asset, which can actually be leveraged for cash if you can sell it or license that property out to other individuals or businesses.
Great. So that's something that is really applicable to many people that I work with, because a lot of docs want to expand their offerings into a virtual market. They want to empower people in areas of nutrition, stress. I mean, I work with doctors over the last 5 years who have had really creative endeavors, and the intellectual property is a big one to protect.
I'm sure, because it's all about the personal spin and the experience that the professional brings to their practice. So protecting what's special about the way that they're delivering the service is it's your biggest asset. It really is. So why would you kind of spend so much time and effort building this signature special way that is why people choose you and not protect it? It would be a great thing to miss.
Mm-hmm. Are there opportunities where docs have, or other healthcare service providers have missed that, and you've seen some crazy stories go down?
I mean, the one, there's a few that come to mind, but they all spin the same. It is, you have spent money, time, energy, years building up a brand name that you never took the time to search before you started to build your business on that brand. And then a few years down the road, knock, 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 comes a demand letter from a big company with a big lawyer, and they are telling you that you don't have the right to run your business under that name. Imagine how that would feel. Like, this is, imagine everything you've created with this name being pulled, the rug being pulled out from under you. So that would be devastating for some businesses. They, not all businesses can recover from a total brand reimagining and still continue on with the same goodwill in the marketplace. So taking those preventative steps is really important. A little sidebar is that not all lawyers in Canada can register trademarks. So you need to get the right kind of lawyer who does that work. And you can even, there are trademark agents in the United States. So if you're operating your brand in Canada and the United States, you have to register your mark in both countries separately. They don't apply over the border.
Mm-hmm. That might be a real quick, it's maybe not a quick answer, but like, how does one find a lawyer? Like, I know how I look for people to work with. Word of mouth, obviously ratings, reviews, if you're in the service industry. But let's face it, sometimes you don't click with someone, or you're not getting the results. And this could be in any profession. So are there any tips that you would offer when people are trying to find a lawyer that might fit their unique situation?
I think the first thing for me would be always try and have some kind of a verbal or face-to-face, even over Zoom communication. I feel like you can really get a lot from a person about how your conversation goes and what it feels like. I'm one of those people that I need to feel, I'm a tactile and visual learner. So that would be one way for me to ask the questions to that lawyer about my needs, and make sure that when you're looking for a lawyer, don't let them bully you. You need to go in feeling like you know what you need. And so even before going to speak to a lawyer, educating yourself a little bit by reading legal blogs would be a great way to get a sense of what the general gist of your issue is. There are so big law firms out there post blogs like no tomorrow that are full of incredible information and really easy to read. So that would be a great place to start. And then definitely referrals would be my biggest way of finding a lawyer. And if you don't know a specific referral, a lot of law societies will have a referral network or website or a directory that the public can go to and find lists of lawyers that practice in different areas who have signed up to be a referral partner on the website.
Right. And let's not forget, you're free to choose a different lawyer. If you're meeting with someone and you're pursuing something and you're not finding results, you could change the situation, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of lawyers will
not a scarcity of lawyers out there in the world.
No, definitely. There's a lot of us. But like I said, a lot of lawyers do things differently. So, the same way a lot of healthcare practitioners do things differently, dentists, you name it. People do things differently based on the way they've been trained and their kind of experience. And so that's why for me, it's about the personal connection. Ask yourself, are you looking for a lawyer just to do a quick transaction for you and done and over with? Or are you looking to build a long-term relationship with the lawyer who's going to be, a good consultant and advisor, someone who has their eyes on the back end of your business when you're looking at the front end, when you're dealing with your clients? Is there someone who's going to, be your advocate in your corner, or, just do that deal for you need closed in a few weeks? So those are different styles of legal practitioners that are also, be aware of that when you're shopping for a lawyer.
Now I'm going to ask you something, and I think your answer is probably going to be like my answer for people in my industry, but what do you think of the do-it-yourself kits? You can go online and download a will and download a divorce agreement and download a contract, and without spending the time and money, hiring a lawyer, investing in that relationship, no different than people can find stretches on the internet for their neck, which never replaces seeing a chiropractor or another allied health professional. So let's talk down and dirty. What do you think about the do-it-yourself kits? What are people missing?
So I think people are missing the education. When it comes to the do-it-yourself kits, yes, you can read what they tell you to do, but you don't know everything that comes behind that. When I work with, for example, one part of my practice is preparing wills and powers of attorney. So that's a great example of a do-it-yourself thing. Technically, the law says you don't even need a lawyer to do a legal will and power of attorney. On the Government of Canada website, easy, those downloadables are there. But what's missing, and what clients come to me with those downloadable kits, done, and they say, okay, now we want you to do it. And it's because of the conversation we have. It's because of how they feel, how secure they feel after having that conversation. When you do it online, you could be doing it right, you could be doing it wrong, who's to say? But when you go to a professional, you can trust that that professional is doing it backed with all the years of experience that come, with their service. So that's what's missing. And that's the personal touch, it's the connection, it's that specificity to the client's circumstance and history and context. Like there are so many questions and different ways of personalizing things that you would never be asked to buy a DIY kit. Like, I know computer algorithms are good, but I don't think they're that good. Like, you know.
I could not agree more. I'm thinking back to, you know, when I've had my wills prepared over the years, and they've been revised a few times because things have changed in my personal life. And 100% agree with you, because the questions that my lawyer asked me about, you know, just details about what to do in this situation, that situation, I would have never have considered. And so they certainly opened my eyes in a lot of ways. And again, parallel to my industry, it's the same thing. I tell people, Google's not a great doctor. I'm so important for you to get informed about your healthcare choices and come to me with great questions. But at the end of the day, objectivity matters. And I can see them as a human being in their energy and their vibration in my office and the whole clinical picture, and help them understand, okay, you don't actually have cancer right now. What you have is this, and this that is leading up to this problem. So it's a whole different viewpoint that someone else will offer you when you get the professional opinion.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, the reality is that there are segments of the market that can't afford that one-on-one hand-holding treatment. And okay, I get it. Maybe they're not like the ideal client of a budding business, but they're still there. And I still feel that from a lawyer's perspective, one of the things that I learned about in law school, which is a really big issue I know Canada, and I'm sure in the United States as well, is access to justice and giving people access to legal information and legal tools at a price that they can afford. So we have in Ontario legal aid that services everybody below a certain income range. We have regular traditional legal services that are affordable to those in another income range. And then there's everybody else who's not accessing legal education and legal services. And so, yes, I think there's a way, and I have seen other lawyers out there doing it, who are blending these two models of the done for you service with the hand-holding personalized experience. And so that is part of my philosophy of practicing law and educating the public on legal stuff, because if I can be a blend of a YouTube video and a, you know, let's talk about your specific situation, then I think there's a sweet spot there, that there's a segment of the market that we can really serve that's just not getting it. And I think it's the same in medical professions. And I think it's the same across a lot of service industries. And the internet has provided this whole new opportunity of providing a hybrid service that kind of takes apart the traditional, really custom bespoke model and puts it into another offering, like a group program or private mentorship, or, you know, these other more affordable containers that service providers can conceptualize to provide the services that they love to do to a greater audience.
Yeah, it's great to see things evolving. I mean, I can't think of there's so many other industries that are doing the same thing, right? I mean, I offer one-on-one coaching programs for people, which are a higher investment. And so some people, they're not at a time in their career where they want to invest that, or they prefer a group model. And so offering them a chance to learn together is a better model. Same with fitness classes. You can go to a class, you can hire a personal trainer. I think it's great to see that the legal profession is also coming along and finding ways to support people of all income brackets and education levels, obviously, too. I mean, this is also a great question for you. Is, you know, what would be the priorities? So some of the people listening to the show are new grads. They're just getting started in their business, or they're going through a transition. Maybe they're restarting a practice after relocating. Maybe they're changing their situation. They're becoming an associate or bringing on associates. Like, there's people at different ages and stages of their practice life. If there was like one thing, or maybe like two things for people to prioritize, what would you say they would be?
So if I would say that the thing you'd want to prioritize would be getting crystal clear on whatever business model you want to operate in, and then locking it down with clear expectations. So a lot of time people have a partner that they want to open a business with and don't realize that there are certain legal implications of becoming partners in the eyes of the law. Again, general disclaimer, general legal principles, but being a partner has different kinds of implications legally. And so whether you're going to remain as a partnership or decide to incorporate. And I know there's some professions listening here that would have to incorporate as professional corporations in Ontario and follow the rules regarding that. But generally what I'm saying is to start, know how you want to build the business and what the structure is going to look like. If you're working with a partner, get a partnership agreement drafted, because if they're your friend and that's a relationship that is the foundation of your business, why would you build it without a solid framework? It just is like pouring cement without a form. So you don't want to do that. And if you're going to incorporate, you need to get that shareholders agreement drawn up with your partner so that you can understand the ins and outs of how the structure of the business is going to affect how you deliver the services and what that looks like. Whatever, or even if you're not even, if you're alone and you're not getting incorporated, not dealing with a partner and just operating as a sole proprietor, you're still going to have to do certain business registrations. There are still basic starting things that you're going to want to talk to a lawyer and an accountant about. You know, all of those components. I would not get started without those two people in your life.
Right. And we talked briefly in the pre-chat about, so we just talked about what to do when you're starting, but what about when people are thinking about exiting, like contingency plans, or in the unfortunate event, life happens unexpectedly and people have to step out of practice? What are some of the biggest concerns that people should have to create a contingency plan that is, you know, viable and doesn't cause dramatic stress for the people who are left behind to help you sort it out?
Definitely. There's a few legal tools that can be used in this circumstance, Melissa. So on the one hand, when you're thinking about exiting the business, let's say everything's hunky-dory and it's all good and you're trying to sell the business and profit from all the work you've put in. Now, there's different ways you can go about transitioning out of the business, but if you set it up as a corporation, you're likely in a better position to sell those shares and pass them on to somebody else, and take a profit from the sale of those shares and transitioning out of the business as one option. On the other side of things, when the unfortunate happens, there are a few legal tools that can come into play to assist. So if you're still with us, but you're unable to manage your business and manage your property, you really, really, really need to have a power of attorney over your property, also known as a continuing power of attorney over your property. This is something that will allow anybody who you name as the attorney to kind of step into your shoes and run your business, especially if you really name a POA specific to your business. The grant of authority can be really broad or it can be really narrow. So if you grant one just over your business and give your attorney this grant, they're going to be able to access the bank accounts, continue payroll, continue paying for all the obligations and signing for all the things that you need to do. That will keep, the wheels turning until you're able to come back and step back into your own shoes. Also really handy if you like to travel. And we know that in the last few years with COVID, there were a few people who got locked out of their own countries and were unable to come back and manage their affairs. So having named a power of attorney over your property of your business would be a really great idea. That'll operate while you're still alive. And on the final end of things, if you unexpectedly pass away, having a will that really speaks to what to do with your business interests will also give a roadmap and a plan for your executor to figure out and implement your wishes at the end of the day.
I love it. We've covered a lot of ground here today. We've talked about how to find a lawyer. We've talked about, the importance of knowing and being clear on your business, which is also what I teach in my programs all the time, but having the clarity from a business perspective and then a legal perspective to protect yourself. We talked about protecting your intellectual property. We've talked about contingency plans and the importance of a will and what things to cover. If people want to dive into this, this is obviously just a scratch the surface kind of reminder for you folks to get your legal affairs in order before it's a crisis mode. Be preventative and proactive with your legal matters before, you're just having to react to a problem. Obviously, life happens. We can't always prevent things, but if, just like your health, you're doing things that you can ahead of time to prevent the inevitable from happening, then sometimes the cleanup is a little bit easier. So if people want to connect more and learn more about you, your work, maybe you can drop in some resources. Certainly check the show notes, everyone, and you can connect with Vanessa. She does do legal audits. She does do a group legal lit program that you can see when the next session is in being conducted, or whether it fits for you. So yeah, what are the best ways for people to connect with you further? And then are there other resources that you would recommend, like general law resources that people could learn a little bit more to get more empowered?
Well, first and foremost, you can find me mainly, I live on Instagram. Melissa mentioned my handle is Soul Attorney, soul as in SOUL, you know, I come from the heart. So soul.attorney on Instagram, and at my website at www.thesoulattorney.com. And generally legal information, like I mentioned before, is out there on these legal blogs, really helpful way. But if you're also just on Instagram or on TikTok, there's some really creative lawyers who are out there who are posting some really fun reels and videos that are making legal education accessible and easy to understand for everyone out there. So use your hashtag, search, you know, TikTok legal tips or stuff like that, and hopefully you'll come across some fun videos.
Yeah, and keep it simple for the rest of us who just really want to protect ourselves, but not dive into all the expertise that you have.
Totally.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today. Listeners, be sure to check out Vanessa's work, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks so much, Melissa. Thanks for having me, everyone.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Find out more about today's guests and everything else that we talked about in the show notes. You can also find all this content and so much more, including videos, blog posts, and how you can work with me on the Rockstar Doctor Life website. If you haven't yet reviewed the show, we'd love it if you headed on over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review about what your thoughts are about future episodes for the show and what you like best. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Melissa Longo DC, and of course on Facebook. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.